I'd like to introduce you to Dr. John Demartini. He is a world-renowned human behavioural specialist, best-selling author, educator, and founder of the Demartini Institute. He has written over 40 books, read over 29,000 texts, and studied more than 250 disciplines. He is dedicated to traveling around the world and teaching people how to empower themselves in all areas of life. He also spends almost every weekend of the year traveling around the world and teaching a signature program, the Breakthrough Experience. Hi, and welcome Dr. John Demartini. Thank you so much for taking this time out of your busy schedule to do this interview with me about how to break through the label myth. I'm incredibly grateful to be able to share your insights, your wisdom and experience with the Be Who You Want to Be community. As you may know, a little bit about my business and vision. Be Who You Want to Be is focused on and dedicated to empowering young children to achieve their potential so they can become the inspired leaders that they are. And I believe by helping parents and teachers and even children dissolve different types of labels like ADD or ADHD or dyslexia, learning disabled, and various others, it is very important and very much a part of the core mission of my business. So I'd love to ask you a few questions about this controversial topic.
I would love to answer them because that's a very important topic I've been discussing all week here, actually.
Oh, wow. Great. Well, what I'd like to start off with, because I know you've had a little bit of a history with some of this in your own life, for the people that are watching this interview, are you able to share a little bit about your background and how this topic is actually relevant to you and the work that you do?
I'd be glad to. When I was young, 6 to 7, and I started elementary school, first grade particularly, I entered into my first reading class. And they had that big book sitting up on a easel and turning the big pages, kind of a Jack and Jill kind of book. And no matter what the teacher did, it just wasn't working for me. I wasn't pronouncing the words. I wasn't making any meaning out of anything. I was writing backwards, and I just was disinterested. It wasn't working. And so the teacher put me from a normal reading into a remedial reading, which is a special little class that had, out of about the 30 students, 6 of them. And within a short period of time, I got frustrated. I think she got frustrated, and she stuck me in a lower position. She put me in a dunce cap on my head and made me face the window with a guy named Harold. And he was definitely challenged, that's the best way to say. And I had to face the window, and she used to say that, you know, when you decide to learn to read, then you can come back in the class, but otherwise you have to stare out the window. That dunce cap, I later turned into a wizard's cap later, but then when she finally realized that that wasn't working, that little strategy, she eventually had my parents come to the class or to the school and said in front of my parents, with me sitting there in these little chairs, "I'm afraid your son is never going to be able to read, not write, not communicate, not amount to anything, never go very far in life." And my parents, they didn't have any other, there wasn't a lot of stuff, I guess, to do at the time, so they assumed that was true. They saw evidence of it. They knew that I wasn't able to read. So the teacher said I would expect him to go into sports because he likes to run. And he was born with a foot deformity and a hand deformity, and I had to wear braces as a kid, so when I finally got out of the braces, I begged my dad to get out of the braces. I did run. So the truth was I was good at running, and I was decent in sports. So I ended up making it through elementary school with the help of the smartest kids. I learned how to ask questions. So I'd go to Jerry Sampson and Clinton Duvall and these other guys, because they were all the top students, and I'd ask them, "So what did you get out of the class today? What did you think about the teacher?" I learned these slick little questions that they didn't even know what I was doing, to get enough data to be able to get through school. And I learned from that a magnificent thing, because today I'm a professional asking questions. My method is based on questions, and I live helping people through questions. And I really believe that that was started at that time because I had to figure out a strategy to survive through questions. And So by the time I was in sixth grade, I'd passed through school, but just, getting by. But I used my strategy of asking questions to do it and befriended certain people. Got teachers to work on my side and befriended teachers to, I was a slick little kid. And that worked until I was in sixth grade. But after sixth grade, my parents moved to Richmond, Texas from Houston, Texas. And I was 13 miles away from anybody. The nearest neighbor was a mile. And we were in the country. And the town was a small little town with very low socioeconomics. And there was no smart kids. I think there was 2 or 3, but that was it. And they were very snotty. And it was 1/3 Spanish, 1/3 black, and 1/3, white. And there was a rivalry and fighting and gangs and all kind of stuff, a lot of drugs and drinking and partying. And I didn't have any smart kids. So the only way I could get attention, since I wasn't able to play ball, because if I played ball there and I struck a guy out with baseball, I'd get either knifed or hit chained the next day. So I dropped out of baseball, and I wasn't making it in school. I didn't have any smart kids, so I just dropped out of school. And I first started hanging out at a friend's house, and I lived in a bowling alley. It was a 24-hour bowling alley, and I lived on the streets and started being a dropout school kid. And my parents saw that I wasn't gonna. I was frustrated, and I told them I wanted to go surfing because I picked up a surfboard and I could do it somehow spontaneously. And my parents literally had a notarized piece of paper saying my son's not a runaway. He's a boy in a dream. He wants to go surfing, and they dropped me off on the freeway at Interstate 10 when I was 14. And I went to California and to Mexico hitchhiking to be a surf bum. And I lived on the streets. I figured out how to panhandle and survive and do all the things that kids do on the streets. And I had quite an adventure. And that then led me to eventually going to surfing in Hawaii. I made enough money panhandling from all the chicks on the beach to fly. And then I lived under a bridge for a while when I got there until it got too noisy and couldn't sleep. Then I moved to a park under a bench, then into a park bathroom, and then finally into a car, and finally into an abandoned house, and then a tent. And I was doing surfing and, doing what all the 60s kids, 70s kids did there until I ended up accumulating cyanide poisoning and strychnine poisoning from some of the activities I was doing, and I nearly died. And luckily I was found in my tent by a lovely lady who, if it wasn't for her, I don't know what would happen. I might not be here. And she's the one that took me to a little health food store to help me recover. And leaving that health food store one day, I saw on the door a flyer introducing a man to come speaking at this little recreation hall. I never went to classes, but something that night with a flyer inspired me to go and see who this man was. And I went there, and that was the night my life changed. To a room with 35 young students that are teens on a floor, sitting on towels and little mats. And a woman, he introduced this old man named Paul Bragg, and he started to speak, and he said things that I'd never heard before. And I believe he had more certainty than I had doubt. He had more belief in me than I had in myself. And he awakened inside me something I didn't even know was inside me. I knew deep inside that I always wanted to be intelligent, but I didn't believe I could be. To read, but I never thought I could. But that night, for the first time, I actually believed that maybe, just maybe, with his help, I might be able to overcome that. And that void surfaced. And I desired to then be intelligent. And when I thought of intelligence, I didn't know anything else but a teacher. So I thought, I want to be a teacher. I want to be intelligent, be a teacher. And I want to travel the world. And I knew that. So I did that night that I wanted to be a teacher traveling the world, studying the laws that he was talking about, and go to every country on the face of the earth and share whatever I discovered with people and try to do what he did for me, inspire me to do that with other people. And here I am nearly 41 years later, 40 and a half years later, I'm still on that focus. I'm still on that mission. And so from that led me to want to know about learning. And I had learning problems. I had to learn how to read. And I had to go take a GED. I had to go take a college class after I passed that. had to work my way up slowly but surely and learn how to read, conquer that issue. And once I did, I had more of a desire than anybody to read.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you haven't been, and you find out, because everybody, all the other kids were just taking it for granted. I wanted to read. So I've been a voluminous reader once I learned how, and I've been, you know me, I'm read nearly 30,000 books now.
That's right.
So I'm a nutcase for reading. But when you talk about learning issues and education, that's big to me. And I just got through talking to a woman here just 15, 20 minutes ago from the World Bank that's involved in finances to global countries, and working with a project that may be worth a lot for education. I worked with a gentleman who's involved in education the other day, worked with the president here, and we worked with another gentleman that's got 50,000 students out of Australia that are trying to get educated and make entrepreneurs out of them. So I'm working on a lot of little projects. In addition to, I've got 5,000 teachers now in South Africa I'm getting to teach on how to awaken genius in children and how to get past the labels that they're labeled in. Because I'm absolutely certain that kids are geniuses, but they're unwisely labeled by teachers who are both uninspired, not knowing how to communicate the children's values, not really knowing how to respect those values and communicate the curriculum those values, and sticking them on Ritalin and giving them labels like ADHD and obedience, defiant disorder, and all kind of labels on it, which is fine if you want to, get your doctor, be a doctor and come up with a label and sell drugs. But it's not fine to wake up these voices. And I think that, I just did a radio show about 2 hours ago on this very topic to 2 million people, mm-hmm. and had 1,000 people trying to reach those lines because their kids are falsely labeled.
Right.
And so I'm a little bit interested in this topic.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your background. I know your story. I've been to a couple of your seminars and read a couple of your books. I understand where you come from. And I personally feel this is an important topic to share. It's very much a part of what I'm trying to shift as well through my business. So I appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of people who might be watching this might think, this is Dr. John Demartini, he's a great success, but they might not know where you've come from and really how you've built yourself to where you're at from your beginnings.
When I started reading, I didn't know exactly what I was doing, so I took a GED, which is a high school equivalency test, which my parents suggested when I moved Hawaii back to Texas eventually.
Right.
And I passed by guessing. I just started saying I'm a genius and I apply my wisdom, and closed my eyes and just went with this little pencil on this thing, and I just guessed. And somehow, miraculously, I passed. And I did that for a college entrance exam, and I passed. And then I took my first little college class, and I thought I was going to pass like that, but I failed. And I got a 27 instead of a 72 to pass. And I was devastated. All I could hear was my first grade teacher whispering in my ear. And I thought this dream about being a teacher was all of a sudden just shattered. And I went home crying, and my mom caught me there on the floor crying at home, and she said, "Son, what happened?" I said, "Mom, I blew it." And I started crying. I said, "I guess I'll never read. I'll never write. I'll never communicate. I'll never amount to anything. Never go very far in life." And I blew it. I guess I'll have to go back and be a surf bum. She looked at me and she said something that changed my life. She said, "Son, whether you become a teacher, a great teacher, and traveling the world, studying universal laws and teaching around the world, or whether you become a great surfer and go ride big waves in Hawaii like you've done, or whether you return to the streets and panhandle as a bum, I just want to let you know that your father and I are going to love you no matter what." Mm-hmm. And when she said that, which I wish parents really comprehended that, my hand went into a fist. I looked up and I saw a vision of me speaking in front of a giant audience. And I said to myself, I'm going to master this thing called reading. I'm going to master this thing called studying. I'm going to master this thing called teaching and philosophy. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to give my service of love. And I'm not going to let any human being on the face of the earth stop me from this, not even myself. So people wonder why I travel full time worldwide. Maybe they would understand if they knew that. But I went in my room. I went in my room and I got a book out called the dictionary, and I started memorizing 30 words a day. And she tested me on 30 words on how to pronounce them, how to say the word, how to define the word, and how to use it. And she helped me gain 30 words a day of vocabulary where I could pass school and learn how to read slowly. And it wasn't easy because I kept having to make up words that I was creating in my mind, which are combinations of words and backward words and all kinds of stuff, but I just kept going with it. And that one little exercise started me on my journey of learning how to read. And so if a person has difficulty with reading, you know, you never give up. And I later, a year later, my mom was saying, son, it's your birthday coming up and it's Christmas. You know, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Christmas? And I said, Mom, I want the greatest writings, the greatest teachings on the face of the earth, the greatest books in history. That's all I care about. And she said, you don't want a t-shirt or something? And I said, no, greatest writings on the face of the earth, the greatest writings in every possible field I can get my hands on. I want to learn the laws of the universe, and I want to understand, and I want to be intelligent. I want to have what is called a polymathic encyclopedic mind. And she called her brother, a professor at MIT, and as a gift, Uncle Ralph, we called him, he sent 2 giant 6 by 6 by 6 foot wooden crates to our house, filled with thousands of books that I had the opportunity to open up. They put it on off a flatbed truck onto the ground. I opened up with a crowbar, and I brought those in the house and surrounded my room. And there was nothing in my room except a little yoga mat, and I surrounded the entire room with nothing but books, literally all the way up. And I just sat there and I read literally 18 and 20 hours a day.
Wow.
And just how to accelerate and asking what worked and what didn't work each day.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know the laws of the universe. I just want to know, you know, I want to be an intelligent person. I want to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thankful for my mom. I'm thankful for almost failing that day or failing that day, because all those were, I always say that you want to look at your life in a way where everything is on the way, not in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything is a gift. Even when told, you know, you never read, write, communicate. That's my gift. Whatever they say I'd never do, may be the very thing I'm destined to do. So, you know, I'm not saying that the labels are really ultimately bad, because they obviously were the things I needed at my stage. But I believe that the truth is that we're all genius.
Right.
And if we know, put the labels there because we don't know how to communicate it and wake it up. But now that I know how, we're breaking labels all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, stories of kids that are just doing extraordinarily well once you tap in and show them how to connect the curriculum and the classes to their values so they're inspired.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, break through the labels. There's no doubt in my mind these are breakable.
Great. That's awesome.